What is up? What is good, everybody? So right now we are going to be comparing the iPhone 10 versus the iPhone 7 Plus in 2018. Now what's interesting about these is that the iPhone 7 Plus is my current daily driver, and the iPhone 10 is a phone that I'm upgrading to in like 2 days when my iPhone 10 comes back. And if you guys are following with that story, I'll have an update in like a couple days. But pretty much, I mean, these phones are completely different from each other. The 7 Plus is actually still kind of expensive for, being a year older. The iPhone 7 Plus kind of actually, in my opinion, I love the jet black version of it because it looks like there's glass on the back where there really isn't. The iPhone 10, however, does actually have a glass back, and it supports wireless charging as well. But looking at the front, these phones are completely different. The iPhone 7 Plus still retains the home button, with the iPhone 10 swap that out for Face ID. And there's pretty much no bezel on the iPhone 10 except the notch, where the 7 Plus pretty much is all bezel. And that's completely a joke. The 7 Plus just has bezels on the top and bottom and the sides, obviously. Now this is pretty interesting because the iPhone 10 is about $300 more used price than the iPhone 7 Plus. And $300 definitely isn't a small amount of money. But when it's this close, I mean, the iPhone 10 could possibly be $300 more of a phone than the 7 Plus. And we'll get into that more, but I mean, obviously, like I always say, the 10 is a better phone overall. If you have an unlimited amount of budget, if you have unlimited money, definitely get the iPhone 10. But one thing I love about the iPhone 10 over the 7 Plus would definitely be the OLED screen. It's so beautiful. I wish all phones had OLED screens. I wish Apple, included them earlier, but it's whatever. It's definitely much better than the IPS panel that's on the iPhone 7 Plus, but it's not the end of the world. They both have Force Touch, and they all pretty much have the same features when it comes to, software versions and everything. In reality, the iPhone 7 Plus is only a year older than the iPhone 10, which means it probably will end its support from Apple a year earlier than the iPhone 10, but maybe Apple will support it longer, who knows. In terms of specs though, the iPhone 7 Plus has the Apple A10 Fusion chip, a quad-core processor clocked at 2.34 GHz, and 3 GB of RAM, where the iPhone 10 has the Apple A11 Bionic chip, a hexa-core processor clocked at 2.39 GHz, and 3 GB of RAM as well. So in terms of speed and performance, the iPhone 10 will be a little bit faster, but really, honestly, in my opinion, these phones are pretty even when you're not comparing them side by side. I mean, if you're comparing them side by side, yes, the iPhone 10 will have better boot up times and faster gameplay and being able to boot up apps faster, but really when it comes down to it, they both will be able to hold the same amount of apps in the background because of 3 GB of RAM, so that's pretty interesting. If the iPhone 10 was a 10 out of 10, the iPhone 7 Plus would probably be like a 9 out of 10. Now another thing to note, the iPhone 7 Plus doesn't come in a 64 GB variant, where the iPhone 10 does, but the iPhone 10 only comes in 2 variants, 64 and 256 GB. The iPhone 7 Plus comes in 3, 32, 128, and 256 GB, so that is something to consider when getting these phones. Now in terms of cameras, they both are pretty similar. They both have 2 cameras on the back. Both of them support OIS. They're both 12 megapixels. They both can shoot 4K videos. But the iPhone 10 can shoot 4K videos at 60 frames per second, where the iPhone 7 Plus cannot. And they both have portrait mode and pretty much all similar features. Now when it comes down to it, the iPhone 10 will probably have a better camera overall, but I do think it's hard to tell when you're not comparing them side by side like I have when I had both and I was comparing them. I mean, the differences are probably negligible, to be honest. I know a lot of people like to hype over like, oh, the iPhone 10 is so much better than the previous generation of this and that, but honestly, that's just marketing tactics. I don't think it's really that much better. Now, battery life is pretty interesting too. I do think personally the iPhone 7 Plus's battery life is probably the best out of every single iPhone that was ever released. It's on par with pretty much the 6 Plus. I do think the 6 Plus actually might be a little bit better now that I think about it. But within the last 2 or 3 years, the 2900 mAh battery in the 7 Plus handles it very well versus the 2716 on the iPhone 10. And because the iPhone 10 is a little bit more powerful and because it has a bigger screen and, higher resolution screen, it does kind of have some problems when it comes down. It does seem like it doesn't last as long as it should, especially when comparing it to a 7 Plus, but really, like I always try to put in numbers. If the 7 Plus was a 10 out of 10, the iPhone 10 would probably be like a 9 out of 10. So it's kind of a flip-flop when it comes down to all these nitty-gritty and all this stuff. Now, some other things to note, like I said earlier, the 7 Plus has a home button and fingerprint sensor. The iPhone 10 does not, but it does have Face ID. The iPhone 10 is pretty much all bezel, and that's pretty much the future of phones versus the 7 Plus, which still kind of has that outdated look. They both have 2 cameras on the back, and they both do not have headphone jacks. And they both share the same kind of speaker thing where the speaker's on the bottom and the top of the phone where the earpiece is. So in reality, these phones actually do have somewhat a lot in common, but the more that I look at it, the more I think the iPhone 10 isn't necessarily worth an extra $300. And that's not saying the 7 Plus is bad or anything, but I do think that if you're an average user and you don't necessarily care having the latest and greatest and you're kind of indifferent about getting either of these phones, I'll tell you like this, I run this YouTube channel, I have reviewed tons and tons of phones, and if it wasn't for this YouTube channel, I probably wouldn't even be getting an iPhone 10, if I'm being completely honest with you. I'm only getting it because so I can, make more videos about it and kind of, talk about it for you guys and all that stuff. And I really see no point in getting it just because it's like, it doesn't really make much sense, honestly, because it's so expensive for what it is. The newer iPhones are about to come out. So what I would tell you like this is get the iPhone 7 Plus right now. If you don't like it, just wait until September, which is like 2 months down. Wait until the newer iPhones come out. Sell this one, lose like $150 or whatever, and get the iPhone 10 when it's on sale. Because best believe when the newer iPhones come out, tons and tons of people are going to sell their iPhone 10s on eBay and Swap and all these other websites. I would definitely recommend doing that over getting an iPhone 10 now. But like I said, if you don't care about it, if you plan on getting an iPhone now and selling an iPhone later and all that stuff, definitely be my guest. Get an iPhone 10. It only means I did my job even better if you got the newer one, but that's my take on it, guys, and that's pretty much where I'm going to leave it at. If you plan on getting an iPhone 10 or an iPhone 7 Plus, links are down in the description, so make sure you get it through that links. I tend to get the lowest prices on Amazon and put them down there, and it supports the channel as well if you buy them through those. So definitely do that. That will mean so much. Comment down if you guys have any questions or anything like that. Please let me know which phone you end up choosing. I'd love to hear your opinion. Hit the like button. That'll mean so much. But definitely hit that subscribe button. We're still giving away an iPhone 6s and an iPhone SE on the channel. All you have to do to enter is subscribe to the channel and follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Both those links are down in the description, so make sure you enter that. But more importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys, and hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.